Nils Larsen, that high-tech display brings advantages over a traditional cockpit window.
Essentially, it's very much like a heads-up display that you would see in a fighter aircraft. So you have your airspeed on the left-hand side, you have your altitude on the right-hand side. I can see the horizon. I have a flight path vector or marker that I can move and put on the horizon, which makes it a lot easier to fly. It actually gives us sometimes more capability than you might have if it was just a window.
Back at Lockheed, the team is in the final stages of the build, which involves installing electrical systems, connecting the tail and that incredibly long nose to the main body of the plane, and getting the aircraft ready to fly. But assembling the aircraft is only half the story. Once the X-59 is built, it needs to go through 3 phases of testing. After Lockheed runs its initial test flights in Phase 1 to make sure the plane can actually fly, it'll hand over the keys to NASA for Phase 2, acoustic testing. And that's where things get really cool. NASA will send up an F-15 jet to fly around the X-59 and measure the shockwaves produced in the air. The idea is to make sure they're behaving as expected. Then it's going to photograph the X-59 mid-flight and capture what's known as a Schlieren image, showing the actual shockwaves around the plane. Photographing a plane going faster than the speed of sound, that takes skill.
The X-59 airplane has to eclipse the sun, if you will, because we use the sun as a backdrop for our Schlieren photography, and all of that has to happen perfectly. It's like threading a needle to get that gorgeous image.
Then NASA needs to measure the sonic thump at ground level. But because the plane is travelling so fast, that sound could be spread across an area up to 50 nautical miles wide. So, NASA is setting up an array of microphones with 70 sensors spread across 30 nautical miles. That way, they'll be able to measure the volume of the sonic thump from the plane flying 60,000 feet overhead. After all that acoustic testing comes Phase 3, when NASA will fly the X-59 above a handful of communities, both in busy cities and quiet rural areas, to see how people actually respond to the noise. NASA is going to present all this data to regulators with the goal of lifting the 1973 ban on commercial supersonic flight. After all, back in the 70s, noise was the problem. But if NASA can prove that supersonic planes can fly without the boom, then speed shouldn't matter. This could open the door to a whole new generation of supersonic flight, and there are plenty of companies waiting in the wings ready to take advantage. Companies like Exosonic, which has won a contract with the US Air Force to develop a low-boom supersonic executive transport. Imagine a future where Air Force One could go supersonic. And then there's Boom Supersonic, which has partnered with United Airlines and is working towards transatlantic and transpacific flights by 2029. With so much happening in this space, supersonic passenger flights could be closer than we think. For now, NASA and Lockheed Martin are focusing on getting their one and only demonstrator aircraft into the skies. And after decades of research and years of design and development, that first X-59 flight is going to be a huge milestone.
I wish that everyone could experience a first flight because it is one of the most emotional things that we go through. And it is really what makes this job and all the heartache and the stress worth it, is when you see that airplane fly. There's a very personal sense of accomplishment, but also for an airplane nut like me, it's emotional.
As a test pilot, this is what you live for. This is an X-plane, and this is research, and there's the cool factor just to us is, this is why I became a test pilot, is to go and do something like this. So, am I excited?